Welcome to this episode 2 of Land Rovers Live. I'm Matt Cooper and with me, host Jeremy Spencer.
Hello there, and hopefully if you were lucky to be at the billing show, you might have caught us in our first ever episode. And of course we'll offer special thanks to Live Promotions who made that possible. In fact, they were so pleased, they're inviting us back to their second show in September.
That's
so
right,
make that a diary date. When is that?
That's the 20th and 21st of September, the LRO show in Peterborough.
That's excellent, yeah, well done.
And as well as that, we'd like to thank our sponsors who without the show wouldn't be possible. So Bearmac, Teng Tools and MM4x4. And
most especially the viewers. We much appreciate your views, reshares, tweets and all of that, and we know that we're still learning by our mistakes, but your help has been most appreciated.
So coming up on today's show, we've got a whole host of great features for you, including the latest news, product reviews. We've also got Land Rover Heroes, in which this week we're taking a look at fantastic lightweight Land Rover, but it's a bit different, isn't it, Jim?
Oh yeah, that pint-sized one.
Yes, quite.
Amazing kit.
So we'll look forward to bringing you that. And this week's workshop guide, which will be brought to you again from MM. And today we're looking at Discovery brakes. But first, it's competition time. And we're going to be giving away this week one of the products that Jeremy reviewed last week. The one of the stoves, I guess, Jim?
Yes, it was the Traveller Stove. It was one I wanted. It's the nice posh one you can put in your ute. A beautiful, heavy bit of kit.
Yeah, absolutely. And as well as that, we're giving away all the accessories that come with it. So we'll get the extra flue sections, the mount, or the fitting, whatever it is, to put it inside of a tent.
It's about £500 worth of kit, that is.
It's pretty close to £500 worth of kit.
What do I have to do to win this?
Well, what we have to do is we've got a bit of footage here of Jeremy tinkering around in his Land Rover. Now, as always, Jeremy has no idea what he's looking at, so we need your help to identify this particular part. Now, this is off a Defender, so we'll give you a bit of a hint there. But all you have to do is go onto our Facebook or Twitter, and there you'll see our latest post. There, you need to reshare that on either Facebook or Twitter, we really don't care, and add the answer. And if we can identify the part that Jeremy's scratching his head about by the end of that, somebody will win the complete Anevay Traveller kit.
I'd rather they just came and fitted the parts of my Land Rover, to be honest. Never mind.
No, well, there's always next time. And remember, if you're not in it, you can't win it. And now, the news. What have we got coming up in today's news then, Jem?
Well, there was that stuff about this fantastically quick Range Rover Sport going around the Brandenburg Ring or something.
Yeah, that's right.
I find it hard to believe you can make a Range Rover do that, but apparently you can. How fast was it?
Well, it's the brand new Rover SVR,
Range Rover.
So it's the brand new Range Rover SVR, which is due to launch early next year. And we went round, well, we didn't, but somebody at Land Rover went round the Nürburgring in 8 minutes, 15 seconds, which probably, it doesn't mean a lot to you, does it, Jem?
No.
It means even less to me. But to put it into context, that's faster than a BMW 1 Series M Coupe. It's as fast as a Mercedes AMG 63 and a whole host of other sports cars as well. So I think, as you say, it's not what you imagine a Range Rover to be doing. But
no. So I don't see that off-road.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So, but apparently that's going to be on sale early next year, and we'll bring you more information about that as we get it.
Yeah, and we've seen the Discovery bits, haven't we? Or bits of a Discovery, the new one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been snapped a few times in the local area, and as Land Rover are always the same, whenever they put a new car out, when they don't want the great unwashed us to know about
camouflage.
They camouflaged it.
Now I understand the references to camouflage Discovery. I wonder what they were going on about. The Army got a new thing on it.
Yes, so it seems the new Discovery Sports now, it's got the camouflage gear on it, and we'll put a picture up on the screen. But this time they've allowed us to see a section of the back which shows, I don't know if it's really a surprise, but it's got 2 seats in the back, so we're looking.
So it's a 7-seater?
Yeah, so we've got 5, so 2 seats in the front, 2 seats in the middle, and now 2 seats in the back.
Well, that's as many as you're allowed to have these days.
Yeah,
so.
Is that exciting?
It is if you've got more kids than the average.
Yes, yeah.
But as well as that new Discovery, there's the fantastic news about JLR sales. They've another record period, over 33,000 vehicles sold, most of which are Land Rovers. Well, Range Rovers and Land Rovers, but not Jaguars.
Mm. And it was a hell of a lot more than that, about 33,000. It was actually about 500,000 vehicles that they sold.
So that'll be 330,000.
Yes, quite. It's which is a hell of a lot. So about 500,000 vehicles in total, and of that, 2/3 of them were Land Rovers.
So there's been some good news for one Defender owner. The Facebook Landy Live, or was it
Landy Watch?
Landy Watch. Mm. Yes, he had his Defender nicked, posted it on Landy Watch.
On Facebook.
On Facebook, that wonderful bit of technology, which I hardly ever visit. And before you know it, it had been recovered.
Yeah, absolutely. Within 2 hours, I believe.
Did they catch bad guys?
That's a very good question. I don't know. Well, if you're out there, do let us know. It's particularly useful. Have you ever had the Land Rover stolen, Jim?
Luckily I haven't. I must say, I'd be really peeved if somebody nicked it, but no. And even though I've left them open with the keys in, I always leave a dog in the Land Rover. That's the tip.
Yes, particularly your dog.
Yes.
So, well, as you know, I did have my Land Rover stolen about a year ago, my first Defender, which was a tragic shame. And, she will be sorely missed. Did
you put that on the Landy Watch?
No, I hadn't heard of Landy Watch at the time.
Ah, well, there you are. So, all viewers, except to Landy Watch, keep an eye out and let's get these Defender thieves because they need dealing with.
Yeah, and it's a sad fact that today that actually the Defender is the third most stolen vehicle in the country.
And for parts, which is even more cruel.
Never mind.
And just one other item which caught my attention this week is that the feds in the States, the Department of Homeland Security, have been out heavy-handing and confiscating people's Land Rovers. Apparently one lady lost her $60,000 Land Rover Defender. I don't know how it gets to be $60,000, but of course the rules are there. If you import the vehicle and it's over 25 years old, it's outside the environmental protection rules. In theory. What the rather over-enthusiastic feds have been doing is checking out these vehicles to see whether they've got things like galvanised chassis and determining, well, they weren't made with a galvanised chassis 25 years ago, and going over 40 people in one day on one set of warrants. And so far, none of these people have been able to find an appeal to get their vehicles back, which I think is quite shocking. Yeah,
it is, yeah. I mean, fairly recently, there was a spate of I don't know who they are, the police people actually impounding these vehicles on imports as well. And at that stage, they didn't actually have any chance to appeal at all. Those vehicles were crushed on site. So.
What have they got against Land Rovers? I mean, I know that the Hummers are just rubbish, but can't be that.
No, the Jeeps aren't much better, are they?
No, they aren't. Anyway, it's good to know we've got lots of Land Rover fans in the States, and we're with you guys. We're stopping up for you.
So that's the news for this week. We better check out what the latest products are available. First up this week is the Masai Wheel Step. Now there are a whole host of wheel steps around and you may have seen them before, but if you haven't, they're really useful devices. This does fit on all Land Rover models and is really simple to fix. Simply unfold it and hang it over the wheel. Now if you're short-legged or need to get up high, there are 3 separate height adjustments on this. When under load, the Masai Wheel Step bears up well. As you can see, it takes a hell of a lot of jumping up and down. The construction of this is all steel. It's painted very well and is actually really comfortable to use as a seat or a table when you're out camping. And again, to take off, it simply folds away into a very flat design to fit straight into the back of your vehicle. The Masai Wheel Step is available now by clicking the link below or visiting the Masai website. Next up is the GMB Fender Locker from Mudstuff. This fender locker takes advantage of the blanked off plate on top of your wing tops. It fits in there very simply and the construction is fantastic. The finish on this fender locker is really nice. It's a black powder coat on top with a rubber seal to keep all the rain out, and underneath it's anodised aluminium. The base plate is stainless steel, so that won't go rusty either. In fact, there's nothing here that should give up. Now when it comes to fitting this, it's a simple 5-minute job. We simply undo the screws from our previous blanking plate. Once the blanking plate is removed, we simply slot the new fender locker into position, and the holes provided in the fender locker should match up perfectly with the ones of the blanking plate. There are many uses for a fender locker, and on the Mud website they show you just a few, whether it be for master battery switch, airline connectors or a whole host of other bits and pieces. We prefer to keep our sandwiches in there. We have found that from above it's very watertight, from below not so much, but this shouldn't matter ordinarily. It's really the rain we want to keep out. For an extra £2 or so you can get a cover to ensure the lock doesn't seize up over time. The GMB Fender Locker is available now from Mudstuff or by clicking the link below. And joining us in the studio today is Neil from Land Rover. Hi Neil.
Hello there.
So what's Land Rover all about?
Land Rover is a company that set out to enhance the Land Rover lifestyle. We make some little switch panels, we make breather kits, we make little door extensions, all the kind of things that we couldn't find when we were looking to enhance our Land Rover experience. The first product we ever made was a switch panel for a Discovery. We designed this to fit overhead in the sunroof console. This screws straight into there. We got 16 amp switches and 4 different colours. People love coloured switches, each with a little LED in as a little identifier to show you that circuit's live or off, as the case may be.
Makes sense. And we can see it's made out of nice quality aluminium, is that?
It's aluminium, yeah.
The original idea behind this, I hear, was quite interesting. Can you tell us a bit about where this idea came from?
Well, that's right. It actually came from a beer mat. Once, do you remember Skoll?
I remember Skoll well.
Skoll Lager. Well, the Skoll had a little dog, and there was a beer mat in the shape of a dog, and it had 4 little holes that you'd put your hands through, and you could walk the beer mat across the table when you're having a drink. And one day I was looking at that, and it just gave me the inspiration for the 4 little switches that I now have in this panel.
For this and more innovative products from Landylubber, go to landylubber.co.uk or click on the link below. And in next week's show, you'll have the opportunity to win some of these great products.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting range of products we've got there. And from the Landylubber thing, one of the things I particularly liked was this code they put on their products. And if you follow that, it'll take you to a video which shows you how to install them. I think that's a very neat idea. Well done them. Now, if you're having problems with the Discovery 3 or 4 brakes, we're going over to the workshop guide now. We'll show you how to put those right.
In today's workshop guide, we're going to be taking a look at brakes for Discovery 3 and 4. And as always, we're joined by Rich from MM. Hi Rich, how are you doing?
I'm alright, thank you. You?
Good, thanks, good. So we've got in front of us here a used and a brand new set of front discs and pads. Well, we can see there's some differences. Do you want to run through what some of the differences between this worn out set and this good set are?
Well, first of all, obviously you can see it's corrosion. We've got corrosion build up in the areas that haven't been touching the pad. And then there's the wear, you know, with the grooves that you can feel in the disc, and obviously the wear in the actual physical thickness of the disc. And then again, the pads wear. You can see there's a big difference between the 2 sets of pads there.
So if we're driving around with these Duff set of discs and pads on our vehicle, how would we know that we need to change them?
Well, the vehicle does have a warning system on it, so a light will come on the dashboard to tell you if the pads have worn down. But that sometimes doesn't always work. So if that doesn't work, what you'll feel is that perhaps the bite isn't going to be as good as it should be. The vehicle may pull one side or the other if one of the pads is completely worn away. And then, at the very worst, you're going to start to physically hear them when the pad surface wears away completely. You'll be just pressing this metal plate against the disc, which makes an horrendous noise.
So today we're changing the discs and the pads, but that's not always the case.
No. Normally you'll change maybe a couple of sets of pads to a disc. So you might have a new set of discs and pads, and then after a few 1,000 miles, you may need another set of pads and retain the original disc. But then obviously the disc at some point will need changing, and you should always change. If you're going to change the disc, you should always put new pads in at the same time. Not. You can put old pads new pads on an old disc, but you can't put old pads on a new disc. It's just false economy.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So these ones we're changing here, these ones look pretty badly worn. Now we know that the thickness of a brand new pad is about 30 millimeters.
Yeah.
And we're taking the Land Rover recommended service specs to say that if this is 5 mil thinner, or in fact it's 3 mil thinner, so if this becomes 27 mil, we're going to change them.
Yeah.
On this one, that's clearly the case. Just in a layman's way, if you're wondering about your own discs, is there a way that we can just check, maybe run our fingers across or something?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best ways of checking, a lot of cars have got spoked wheels. You can see your discs through the wheel. If they look rusty, if there's an area of the disc that isn't being used and you can see corrosion on it, that's not a good sign. They need changing. If there's bad scoring that you can see and physically feel, but obviously not when you've been down the road because you'll burn your fingers, but you can feel grooves in the disc, which again is bad. And then there's the obvious lips either side of the of the area that's being rubbed. And again, you can feel those ridges either side of there quite badly.
Sure. So on this particular one, we're about shot on here, and if we use a our measuring device, we can see that we're about 2.5 mil down on there. So if we take the same off both sides, we're about 5 mil off the original.
These are quite
thickness.
bad,
Okay.
And again, the pads you can see are way past their best.
Yeah, so if we're going to go ahead and get these bad discs and pads swapped out for these new ones, and we'll see how it's done.
Okay.
For Discovery 3 discs, there are a lot of variations. If you download the Bearmac app, available now from the App Store, it'll guide you through each and every different variation on that. For brake pads, it's a much simpler affair. One size fits all.
We just want to check the brake level, because if the pads have been wearing and the brake level's been topped up, when you push the pistons back on the calipers, the brake level could rise to a point where it's going to overflow and spray inside the engine bay here. So we're going to remove this panel, which is held down by 2 clips, one here and one there, which will expose the master cylinder, and then you can see the levels here. And if the level's too high, when we push the pads back, it's going to overflow, so we'd need to syringe some of that fluid out of there to stop that happening. If the fluid hasn't been checked as the pads have been wearing, then the fluid level will be low. So when you put the new pads in and push the pistons back, it should bring the level up to the correct mark. And obviously, after you've done that, check the level, make sure it's okay, road test the car, and then just double check the level again after you've bed the brakes in.
In order to access the brakes, the wheels need to come off. We're just looking at the front here, which will need servicing more regularly than the rear. As always, when removing a wheel, crack the nuts loose before you lift the vehicle. And on a Discovery, you'll need to find out the ever-elusive locking wheel nut. Once the wheel has been safely removed, we'll need to unplug the brake sensor cable. These often break, so we recommend replacing it if it feels a bit brittle or if the end comes off. Next up, we'll need to undo the actual brake caliper. Next up, we need to remove the brake caliper. Now the bolts are quite hard to see, but they are 12 spline bolts. Normal socket sets may come with a 6 spline ratchet set and can round off fairly easily, so we do recommend having the right tool for the job. You'll also need a spanner here to stop the caliper slides from spinning around. Once the caliper is off, we've used a bent coat hanger, but you can use a cable tie to hang the caliper up out of the way. This ensures that we're not placing too much stress on the brake pipes. They're fairly fragile and can break easily. If you're just replacing the pads at this point, you can forego this next step, but because we're replacing the discs, we'll need to take the caliper sled off also. This enables us to access the disc. It's always worth checking the pad carrier once this is removed. The threads in here can corrode. If the threads look worn, or the bolts that come out look a bit chewed up, then we'll replace it. After that, we're going to need a T6 Torx. There's just one bolt holding the actual disc onto the hub. This should come free at this point. If it doesn't, a light tap with a mallet will do the job. Now we're ready to fit the new discs. When we buy new discs, they do come with a grease cover over them. I guess this stops them from rusting, but this will need to come off, otherwise we'll have no brakes at all. Brake cleaner or white spirit sprayed onto the disc will remove all excess grease. To fit the new disc is much like taking the old disc off. We slide the disc on, ensuring that the hole that the Torx screw came out of is lined up. Tightening up the Torx screw will require 12 foot-pound of torque. Next up, the pad carrier can go back into position. Ensure that the bolts and the threads are clear, and if you wish, apply some Loctite, but don't put grease on. Once the carrier is on, we can replace the pads. Once the pads are on, and they just slide into place here, we can replace the caliper. It may be the case that the pots on the caliper are sticking out too far, so it appears that they won't go on. You should be able to, with a bit of persuasion, push these back by hand. When we're ready to tighten the nuts on the caliper and the pad carrier, we're going to use about 55 foot-pound of torque. Then we'll need to just reattach the sensor wire. We're now ready to refit the wheel in the same way as we took it off and do the other side. On the front, the other side, the operation is exactly the same. However, when we've finished doing our brakes, we must be aware that they actually aren't going to work very well for a while.
The next thing we need to do is pump the pistons back into the pads and the pads against the discs, because if we don't do that, the first thing that's going to happen when we drive away is your foot's going to go to the floor, taking that free play up, and then you're not going to have any brakes and you could crash the car. So it's really important to pump the pedal up before you road test the vehicle. Okay, what we need to do is drive steady, don't apply the brake heavily to start with. When we do apply it gently for no more than 3 seconds at a time, leaving enough time for the brakes to cool between each time we press the brake pedal, and then just pressing it a bit firmer for 3 seconds each time we do it until you'll feel the brakes to start to work, because initially the brakes will be quite poor because they're new and shiny, so they need to be obviously bed in, and then as we go through that procedure you'll feel the brakes working more and more as we go.
So hopefully if you've got any problems with your brakes, that'll get sorted out. And of course, if you've got any problems with your Land Rover, issues you want resolved or questions to be asked, don't forget to tweet us in and email them or whatever, and we'll put it on our list of things to do in the workshop guides in the coming future. Next, we're going to have a look at the Land Rover Heroes, which is slightly different this time because it's not somebody working with Land Rovers so much as somebody working on a very small Land Rover. But we decided who's the hero for the fact that he actually completed it. So it's over to Matt, who's going to tell us all about it.
Now, if any of you have ever been to a Land Rover show, you'll see the small little Land Rovers that are pottering about. Generally there'll be a stand for them, or you'll see people using them as commuter vehicles around the show. Toylanders have been quite popular for many years, but at billing this year we've come across this, which is not a Toylander. In fact, it's the brainchild of Colin here, who you've spent many long years producing this FFR lightweight.
As a full-on replica with as much alike as the genuine vehicle, so it's got a full chassis, petrol engine, twin fuel tanks, leaf spring suspension, winch.
The thing that struck me with this, you do see miniature vehicles and they're generally a bit smaller than this, but the actual attention to detail on this, Colin, is simply sublime. I noticed it's got full leaf springs underneath.
Yes.
As you said, it sits on its own chassis. I mean, where do you go about finding a chassis?
I made it. That's just going out, measuring the size of the box tube chassis on the classic Land Rover, which I had a Land Rover Discovery, and then going to the steel yard and buying the steel half size.
It's an absolutely staggering feat to have achieved that, but that's not all. You actually you've been quite unwell, and that's sort of spurred you into doing this.
It did. Every other day I could do a bit, and over the last month I've been getting it ready for this show, and it's really helped me because I've been breaching new barriers, which has allowed me to finish the model. It's 99% finished. It's missing the wing mirrors, it's missing the speedo, but it's operational. There's a lot of parts on this which I've had to manufacture myself. Some people recognise one or two of the parts in there. The steering reduction box, which reverses the rotation of the steering wheel to make the wheels turn in the right direction and give me 2 turns lock to lock, started out life as a hand drill.
Oh really? Well, yeah. So
fantastic. Recuperation as well in there, but it's got a full aircraft grade aluminium body shell, close as you can get without actually taking the drawings and manufacturing everything in a Land Rover factory. And the design, which I've actually got on the VIN plate, actually says 250 kilos because that's what it should have been scaled, but because some of the metal is a little bit thicker and tougher than the scale version of the full size, it's come out a little bit overweight, but we all do with age.
Yeah. One of the things that you can't help but notice is that it's loaded with radio gear at the back, and that might give a bit of a hint of your past then.
Yes, I've been a radio amateur for 30 odd years. It's allowed me to equip the vehicle as an FFR operational, and tonight it will be operational through the night, contacting hopefully as many countries as possible that this vehicle or the lightweights, actually serve them.
It's quite an incredible thing, and this is the first time that it's been, by the wing mirrors, finished and out and
This is the
viewed by
first time it's been displayed as a running operational vehicle.
Right.
I had a total redesign on the clutch because I wasn't happy with the system.
Sure.
So I totally redesigned that. I'm not 100% happy with it now, so it's going to undergo some more modifications. So,
if people want to know a bit more information about this or how you're getting on, do you have a website or?
There's the Lightweight Land Rover group on the internet, which I've joined, so that I can ask questions and get bits of information, get photographs, close-ups of instruments, so I know what I'm doing.
We haven't talked about the fact that it's got full 5-speed box and reverse gear.
Yeah, twin fuel tanks.
Yeah, sat there under the seat. And actually, the way that you see it now, it does fold up, so you wouldn't fit a real person in there at the moment. But the radio gear slides back and the seats come up, so it's fully drivable by yourself.
On me, 6 foot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you said that the work's not done. You've got other big plans for the future. A trailer.
Yes, my intention is to build a 2.5 metre long trailer, which is modelled on a 2-axle generator, but it will actually have a fold out side, so I can get in it and use it as a sleeping compartment. The whole lid will come off, and chairs like baby seats will go in, so I can give rides to children.
But thank you very much for coming on the show, Colin.
Thank you very much.
So there you have it, a half-size lightweight. That's quite a feat of engineering there, Jim.
It's extraordinary, and Colin actually has a lot of personal health issues to battle through while he's trying to finish that project. Is it now the time to ask him for a half-size Defender?
Yeah, well, I think he's got a few other projects on his plate first, hasn't he? I think he's looking to do a half-size trailer, which he can actually...
Half-size caravan?
Yes, he'll have to go on a bit of a diet, I think, to get inside inside that. But that's pretty well it for this week's show. All that remains is to remind you guys about the competition that we've got, as we so eloquently explained it earlier. So what we're after is for you to identify this bit that Jeremy just doesn't have a clue what it is on his Defender. So once you've identified it, follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and our latest tweet or Facebook post, you'll need to put your answer in there and reshare that. We're going to announce the winners on next week's show. And as always, if you have any comments, feedback, feature requests, whatever you fancy, do let us know on Facebook or Twitter, or in YouTube. You can use the comments box below. I think that's pretty well it for now, isn't it, Jim?
It is. I was going to say that's a hot prize, that stove, but not if it's not lit.
No, it's not. And I suppose it is worth mentioning this time as well. That's the stove that we didn't cure properly in the review, has now actually been cured. So,
right.
We think.
It's fully fledged and ready to go.
That's it, ready to go. So that's it for this week's show, and we'll catch you guys next time.